if you want something in life, it's not going to fall into your lap. You have to go after it.
I love that opportunity doesn't just come to you. Like that expression, opportunity knocks, is very misleading. Like I think it implies that if you sit around long enough, somebody's going to knock on your door and hand you an amazing opportunity. And
That's
that's just
correct.
not reality. Welcome to Business Buying for Financial Independence. I'm Tim Delaney, and I help young professionals buy small businesses so they can escape the 9 to 5 and take control of their time, income, and future. If that sounds like you, hit the subscribe button and let's get into it. Today's guest is Mike Wilson. Mike is a Air Force veteran, retired police detective, and the owner of Blue Mint Thai. He currently has 4 locations, up from the one he purchased, and has 3 franchisees ready to go with bigger plans for the future. So today we're going to get into his story and how he ended up acquiring this business and what he's doing with it since. Mike, welcome to Business Buying for Fi.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that.
So why don't we take it back a step? You've got these multiple restaurants running successfully now. Where did you come from? What got you interested in business in the first place?
So just give you forewarning. I'm a long talker, so I'm going to do my best to keep these stories um, concise and on track. So my background is I was born and raised in the Miami Fort Lauderdale area of Florida, and I have a typical story of an entrepreneur where um, my dad was a felon and my mom worked multiple jobs, and we were always hurting for money. So that's what led me into always wanting to search for something to get my financial independence and feel some safety and security, because when I was a kid we didn't really have that. um, I was a 2.5 student, dropped out of college because I avoided anything that was hard. I slept through a lot of my classes, and I was, one of those kind of smart kids that didn't apply himself at anything. And then when adversity came, I took the other direction, um, the path of least resistance. It wasn't until I enlisted in the Air Force in 1999 that the military kind of taught me. And I made a post earlier about Memorial Day yesterday. Yesterday was my 27-year anniversary from my first day in basic training. um, so that's what the Air Force taught me was if you want something in life, it's not going to fall into your lap. You have to go after it. And that's when my first, your standard entrepreneur story. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad for the first time, and I was like, oh, you can make money without being an athlete or a doctor or lawyer. And then I was like, oh, people are buying houses and you don't even have to live in them. And then sent me down a journey of hundreds and hundreds of books to read, and led me to be on this amazing podcast.
Awesome. I love that opportunity doesn't just come to you. Like that expression, opportunity knocks, is very misleading. Like I think it implies that if you sit around long enough, somebody's going to knock on your door and hand you an amazing opportunity, and
That's
that's just
correct.
not reality. that's
That's very true.
um, well, thank you for your service, and that's an
Thank
awesome
you.
story that it was 27 years to the day on Memorial Day. What I've had a few military people or former military people on the podcast lately, and all
Jeremy
of
last
them.
week was, yeah, Navy guy. He was in
Yes.
my DFW group.
Oh, nice. Jeremy Hans. Yep. And another guy, Elvon Bowman, was on, or I just recorded with him. His episode hasn't released yet. But that mindset shift seems to be pretty consistent. Do you recommend the military for people that are kind of, say, wandering, lost, don't have direction? Is that
So that's exactly the post that I put.
okay?
So there's pros and cons to every decision we make. And if you listen to Alex Hormozy and some of these other creators, like, everything is a sacrifice. And the bigger the dragon, the better the story. So you come up with a big, you want to be president or you want to have $1 billion business, you're going to have to slay a big dragon to get to that spot. Um, it was pretty shocking for me, because without a dad in the house and my mom working 2 and 3 jobs most of my childhood, I kind of raised myself. So it was shell shocked when I went to the military, and then they started making me fold my underwear in 4-inch squares. And then when I did it perfectly, they took my clothes and threw it on the ground and said, "Do it again." And I say, sir, yes, sir. Thank you for your time. Um, so uh, I was I mean, I can go down a whole diatribe of values and lessons I got from it, but um, that's when my life started turning around because I realized number one, I don't have an option. Like when you're living a regular life, yeah, I don't feel like doing that. That's too hard. But in the military, it's like, hey, wake up at 4 in the morning, go pack your gear. You're gonna hop on a plane and you're going overseas in 48 hours. And it's like, I don't have a choice to say no because it's either jail or yes, sir, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So once I started getting in that structure and routine that I never had before, I started excelling. So when I was in basic training, I won an honor graduate award, top 10%. Then I went into my security forces training. So I was military police for the Air Force. And then I got distinguished graduate, top 10% there. And I was like, oh, if I actually do what I'm told and I work hard and try hard, as hard as I can do to be successful. Um, One of the core values of the Air Force is excellence in all we do. So once I started practicing that, like, oh, I'm winning at life. Like people are looking at me in a different way they never have before. And then just like to our conversation just a second ago, like I had an opportunity to finish my 4-year degree and become an officer. And while my friends were in the dorms partying and drinking and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, hey, I got to write a paper. So I was not the fun guy. But then when I got a call from a general and it was like, hey, you're going to officer training school, congratulations. I got a $24,000 raise in 12 weeks. And then I started making decisions for an organization and having a bigger impact and a bigger scope of responsibility. And that's when I was like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, this is where I started like really thriving. And there's a whole separate conversation on benefits of joining the military as far as getting VA benefits. So both of my sons have free 4 years of college at a state school. Um, the VA loan, I can buy $1 million fourplex with zero down. And, if that opportunity came across. So that's what started getting me into real estate investing. So when I was in the Air Force and I had some spare time, I started reading books and educating myself. And once I got that education, I was like, hey, if all these people writing books are doing it, let me do it. So I bought a house and then I was never going to sell it. And then I got stationed somewhere else. I bought another house and then I was never going to sell that. And I got stationed in another place, I bought another house. So then I'm just buying a house like everyone else does. But now I have three and four. And then I start getting into other, other relationships that lead me to 60 plus doors at this point.
Wow. And those books, so you started reading those books during the Air Force instead of just renting places and moving around as you're told to move. You were stacking up houses
That's
everywhere you
correct.
went.
That's exactly
Probably
right.
with some good loan options. Being a military, which is helpful as well. That's that's an impressive. So up to 60 units. All those during the Air Force, or did you start to keep acquiring after?
So mostly single family homes, and then I got into some partnerships with some GoBundance members. GoBundance is a mastermind and accountability group, and a lot of these guys are heavy into real estate. So once I started getting in the rooms with the right people, and they're walking me and guiding me through, what it looks like to be a partner in a deal. So I'm a I don't know, 1/6 or 1/7 partner in a 60-unit apartment complex in South Dakota with one of my friends. And then I have a condo hotel in Orlando. I have four single family homes in Texas, and always looking for the next partnership or next opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. Getting in those right rooms, especially with groups like GoBundance, but there's plenty of others out there that just they really level you up. They force you to level yourself up by being around those people, and they open up opportunities. That's so
That's
instead of those
exactly right.
opportunities coming to you, you're in the room. You get to see them and hear them. Uh, let's pivot and start talking a little bit about this business deal that you found. Where were you, or how'd you come up with the idea of shifting from real estate into buying a business?
So I didn't really shift. As we talked before, sometimes opportunity does knock, and you have to have the confidence in yourself that you know that you can get the deal done. And I'm a big believer in my faith, and every conversation, every idea, we're planting seeds. And even though things don't happen the way that we perfectly would want them to happen, sometimes 10 or 15 or 20 years down the road, you can see the purpose behind that. So let me backtrack a little bit. So I was active duty in the Air Force for 8 years. I was a captain in the Air Force. And that was going to be my career. Like I already had 8.5 years in. I was going to do my life, the lifer thing, get my pension. Um, every so often in the military, they do something called a RIF, which is a reduction in force. So essentially, I became an officer right after 9/11, and they hired a lot of people because they knew that we were going to go to war. At some point, when that stabilized, they said, "Oh, we don't have any money for any new airplanes. We need some more, combat fighter pilot stuff." And I was, in an office writing performance evaluations, and they're like, "Hey, you got to go." So 4,000 officers in my year group got laid off from the military. Fast forward, I thought I was going to be super marketable. I thought I was like, oh, I'm a weapons instructor, and I had this leadership experience. I was in charge of 800 people in my nuclear missile unit, like munitions unit. And I had a few interviews, and I was Amazon. It was a Department of Energy nuclear materials courier, so like a super SWAT, high speed, you know, Jocko type person, or Goggins type person. And none of that panned out for me. What panned out was me going back to Chili's, where I was a bartender and a waiter, and becoming a manager at Chili's. So that's a long way to say that wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. And as soon as I got out of management training, I decided that I had to go do something else. And I applied to be a police officer. So I was a police detective and street officer for 17 years here in Arlington. When I was a detective one day, I'm still fully engaged into finding real estate deals, finding opportunities. Well, what are the odds that somebody that I work with who was a civilian timekeeper, she's like, "Hey, Mike, I was here shopping for apartment complexes and businesses to buy. Why don't you buy my family's Thai restaurant?" And I was like, "Hell no. Like, restaurants are hard. What is Thai food? Thai food sucks. It sounds gross. I've never had it before. Curry's yuck." So she's like, "Hold on, hold on. You never had Thai food before?" And she calls her mom. "Mom, my cop friend needs to taste this food." So she brings in all this stuff. And I was like, gobble, gobble, gobble. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And at that point, I was like, the world needs to know about this. And you can understand, like, traditionally, people from Thailand, they don't follow the same education paths and structuring that we do. So they're not really big into banks or loans or things of that nature. So I was sitting there, and they didn't even have books. Like, when I was like, "Oh, I'm interested in buying this business," it's like, "Okay, well, give me your financials." And they handed me a handwritten uh document that shows the last 3 years of sales on pen and pen. And I was like, "I don't know what to do with this." So I asked my friend, and I was like, "How much, you're my friend who's bringing me this opportunity, how much do they make per month take home, like after all expenses?" And she goes, 8 to 10,000. And I was like, "Oh, I'm making $4,000 a month wearing a bulletproof vest and going after bad guys and murderers and rapists and all that kind of stuff. And then I could 2.5x my salary by literally doing nothing, like keeping everything the same menu. It's been there for 15 years, the restaurant." So that was my plan. So the conversation was, how do I make this happen financially? And I could get into that if you wanted to hear the terms of the deal.
I definitely do, but I want to back up for a second and talk about the riff or layoff in civilian terms. The Because this is something I've been talking to a lot of people about lately. I personally know multiple people in their late 40s, early 50s that have been laid off from corporate jobs lately and struggling to find jobs because their skill sets have shifted. They gave their 20, 30 years of loyalty to a company, and now they're in a rough spot. And a lot of people think of government jobs, maybe up until Doge last year, as untouchable. But even you're pointing out, even the military, uh, you think you're going to be there forever, and they decide one day that they'd rather have more planes than more mics. So uh, I think that's a really big eye opener for a lot of people, like to just kind of think about what your options are at all times. I mean, Sounds like you're already starting to do real estate, but still to go from managing a something involving nuclear energy to a Chili's is a kind of a big jump.
Yes.
I'm sure
And a
that was
big hit to your pride.
I'm sure. Yeah. Pride, paycheck, all of the above benefits. So just for everybody listening out there, whatever you're doing now that you think is safe and stable, just make sure you're paying attention to what's going on around you. Um, so, so you apply to the police. You're wearing a bulletproof vest, putting your life on the line every day uh, for
17.
$4,000,
Yep.
and then an opportunity comes along to more than double that overnight with very little effort. I'm with you. Restaurants sound awful. I have no interest in owning a restaurant. I've talked to a lot of
Same.
other people that say the same thing. But for the right person and the right opportunity, I guess if the right deal, you can't say no to everything. So, talk us through those terms and why it made sense, and besides being amazing quality food and delicious
Sure.
stuff.
So we are the best Asian restaurant in South DFW. Out of 1,000 Asian restaurants, we get voted 4 years in a row, and hopefully coming out soon, the fifth year in a row. Again, I sat down and looked at the pros and cons. Um, these people they don't do any marketing. They don't spend money on marketing. They ran it the way they've always run it, as far as coming from directly from Bangkok and Chiang Mai and Thailand. So this was always a build to sell scenario for me. As we all know, as entrepreneurs and people involved in real estate and everything else, restaurants are the lowest margin and the hardest to work, as far as employees and the staffing part and the logistics. I mean, you get a lot of experience as being a mini CEO because you have to run every aspect of a small business through the restaurant. So there's that aspect to it. But ultimately, this was a they have a great product and great food. Let me market for them, try to create partnerships, and make people know how good it is. And then somebody like Chipotle or Kava or another restaurant group, Raising Cane's is actually where we have a meeting with them in the imminent future. But it was always, I don't want to be a half Puerto Rican, half white guy owning a Thai restaurant empire. I need to offload this to experienced restaurant operators. And that's kind of the point we're at now. So I've been the owner for 3.5 years, and we're looking into private equity and restaurant groups taking a majority stake over us, because that point is restaurants are hard. The terms of the deal was pretty easy. Like, I was very grateful, but I had a couple of rental properties with some equity in it. Obviously, after COVID 2021, everything skyrocketed, and this is another great lesson for your listeners: is own assets, own real estate, own things that make money that aren't super labor intensive. Because I was playing Call of Duty and drinking beer for most of the year, and I made $1.2 million on paper because my six houses jumped up 30% over 2.5 year period. Um, so I did a quick refinance out of that, some cash out refinance. The terms were, I was buying the restaurant for 275. I put 80 grand down out of refinancing some real estate, and I made that 80 grand back in 7 months. I The terms of the deal, because they don't believe in interest or banks, is I have a owner finance 0% interest for 5 years. So when I started, after listening to Bigger Pockets and reading all these books, and I was like, sounds like a home run. Like, all the staff is going to be in place. The family that still created these recipes are still involved with what I have going on. So quality assurance, make sure the recipes are correct. Like, they have full buy-in. So that's when, because of my not my timing and not my plan, God said, "You're going to go to Chili's and learn how to be a restaurant manager." That gave me the confidence to be able to say, "Let's go. Let's make this happen."
That's a good connection to the Chili's stint. How so? 275 is a purchase price. You put down a little less than 30%, and they financed the rest at 0% interest for 5 years. That's quite incredible. I also just want to touch on the fact that you didn't. You talked about your real estate appreciating. You didn't go and sell that real estate. You still own it. You just got the cash out from the bank
That's
as
correct.
a, on a cash out refinance. So you still own those assets, and then you were able to take that equity and put it to use into this. So
That's correct.
really, you didn't have to take any cash out of your pocket necessarily. You're paying interest on that other money, but since your main loan is 0% interest, it's not impacting you too much. And then did you go in day one as a manager? Were you planning to run the store yourself? Is that how, or was it completely hands off?
So Tim, it was meant to be completely hands off. I was still detective over the busiest area in Arlington. So I was writing almost 200 warrants a year, arrest warrants a year, and search warrants and all that kind of stuff. So that was my main job, and I was really good at it. And I liked it, and I had pride in what I was doing. But when you start talking about my goal of being financially independent and financially free, like the math doesn't math when you have 8 to 10,000 a month for doing nothing, or 4,000 working 50 hours a week. Um, so that's that's how that came about. But I tell people all the time with rental properties, like every month it's a goose laying a golden egg, and the egg gets bigger and bigger and bigger every month through appreciation or through rent increases and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So how much longer did you keep the detective job after you bought the restaurant?
Great question. I was still skeptical, so I didn't go into the management part. I just showed up all the time, like, "Hey, can I get you guys anything? Everything cool?" Like I wanted to be seen and present, but I wasn't. I was there like on Friday and Saturday nights because I had a full time job as well. Um, but after the money was coming in regularly for about a year. So I bought it in 2023, and then I retired in February of 24.
Okay. Okay. And so you weren't actively managing the restaurant, but you did show up regularly, so the staff and customers knew
Exactly.
who you were,
Mhm.
which is a great way to do it if you can, where you don't have to. You're not the bottleneck for anything,
Sure.
but people still know who you are and that you exist as an owner, which is nice.
Yes.
And did so you were buying this, it was all turnkey. It's been there for 14, 15 years, you said, which is probably the only way I would buy a restaurant is if it had that long of a track record,
Correct.
because restaurants come and go very quickly.
I do.
What did you change day one? Did you change anything?
Yes. So recipes are recipes. I'm not a Thai recipe expert. I'm gonna let the market decide how good our food is. But for me, like that's where my business acumen comes in. I start talking about making partnerships, um, getting with the chambers of commerce and the community. I'm a big philanthropist at heart, so donating to the school district, um, getting out in the community to do speaking events. I wrote 2 books that are on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles, charitable books, and I pass those out. I mentor students in the community, so that's a way for me to, you know, m- increase my brand awareness in the community, but also my local brand. Like, oh, Mike Wilson, I know that he's the Air Force veteran. I know that he's the police officer that owns this Thai restaurant. His stories is great, and he's going to come speak in my kids' class next week to talk about investing or mindset or goal accomplishment, that kind of thing. So that's what I initially try to change, and then I spend some money on some marketing dollars. So getting out into ad pages, your value pack, your mailers, and that worked. Like that's where I felt confident enough to retire after a year. Is we went from our top line to being 859,000. I'm sorry, 821,000 in 2022, and then my full first year of ownership was at 1.1 million. And in the restaurant business, that's pretty significant. So that was me essentially pounding on doors saying, "Come try our food. Once you try my food, I got you. Like you're not going anywhere else for Thai and Asian food." Um, so and then I gave it a quick uh, a mini flip. So painted, changed the walls, brought in some technology. We use the Toast POS system, and they have great data analytics. They have great marketing programs. My first email to my customers was my emails that I had on my phone, 243 emails. And right now we're over 15,000. So it's nice to be able to know the reach we have because every email that we had, every new customer we had, it's saved in our CRM. So now, Happy Memorial Day, come get $10 off your next order of 40. Like, oh, that sounds cool. Let me try that. So we are constantly out there trying to, you know, shake hands, kiss babies, and be seen in the community so people know who we are. Come try our food, and then I got you.
Yeah. That's incredible growth for your first year in the business, especially for such a long established business. And that's just something else I'd like to point out to people because even before I even started looking to buy a business 15 years ago, when I thought buying a business was, why would anybody want to do that? You're buying somebody else's problems, or it's stagnant. It must be stagnant if it's been around for so long. It's usually only limited, capped by the willingness of the current owners to go out there and grow it. And
Exactly
for
right.
for a lot of them, they don't want to grow it because they've got things where they like it, they're making enough money, and they don't want more headaches or perceived headaches. So there's usually room to grow as a new owner. You got all your cash back in the first year, not even being the manager, which is fantastic, and you're continuing to grow. So when did you was Toast in place when you bought it? Did they have the point of sale system?
It was not. So they had a one that was bought and paid for. So the family that I purchased this from, there were three sisters and a brother. All of them have owned Thai restaurants either in Texas or New Jersey. So they all, they keep it in family. Like, oh, here's my accountant. Okay, call him. Hey, here's my point of sale system. Call them. So I adopted everything they had. And again, as a military commander, when I get stationed into another base or another unit, I don't come in there and change things the way I want them. I come in, observe what's right, what's wrong, what can I make small improvements on, because I don't want to throw all this stuff at a new staff. So like over the last 3 years, incremental changes. All right, we're going to change this month. All right, I'm going to paint the walls this month. Like I just get them indoctrinated to a new way of always being improvement, always making things better, and it's been great. I've had no one leave that I didn't want to leave. So we have the same staff for 7, 8, 10, 15 years. Some of our head chef's been with the family for 18 years. So
Yeah,
that's why we keep winning the awards. Consistency.
yeah, that's great because that's something I recommend people when they first buy a business. Don't go in there guns a blazing with
Absolutely.
plans to change everything. When I bought my wine and liquor store, I did introduce a new point of sales day one because I wanted that data, and they had no electronic system. But everything else waits. Take your time, observe, like because we all have preconceived notions. You think something should be this way, but you might watch it, and the thing that you think is the worst could turn out to be the best system they have going and works for that situation. When did you start thinking about opening up other restaurants or additional locations?
So that's a funny story, Tim. I was in a GoBundance event. So let me back up a little bit. So I was ready to keep writing warrants, let the restaurant bring in some cash flow. I was going to do just fine, no big deal. And one day I woke up at 2 in the morning and God said, turn this into Chipotle for Thai food. And that's all I heard. And I was like, yes, sir. Like I got my marching orders. So since then, that's when I started like thinking about, hey, I want to expand. How do I expand? And I will just wave a caution flag at your listeners. One of my GoBundance members, one of my buddies in my pod, he said, Mike, as soon as you retire, take some time for yourself and don't say yes to everything. What do you think I did, Tim?
You probably didn't do that.
That's correct. So I paid for franchising rights. So now we are able to sell franchises. I was building out a second store in Midlothian, Texas, which is my hometown. And then signed a lease for a third location in Arlington in downtown area. And then my business partner, she came on board and she got us to be the official Asian restaurant partner of the Texas Rangers. So these are all like 1 to 2 year long initiatives, and I did them all at once. And last year, I developed a stress related autoimmune disorder. Um, and we talked about earlier, like you become the people you spend the most time with. And I got into the right rooms, and I got into some rooms where I shouldn't be. And I'm very grateful where some investment opportunities came up with in the oil and gas industry, and the money's coming in, and especially after the war broke out, the money's even $100 a barrel was different when it's $55 a barrel. So all that is, I look back on my trajectory and I'm grateful to get in those doors. But when you start talking about buying businesses and entrepreneurship, I don't recommend it for a lot of people. You really have to have that drive, that passion, that discipline, because it's a lot easier to, punch a clock and be told what to do for 40 hours or 50 hours a week. But when it's on you and you have investors and you have people depending on you and you have 50 employees that need their paychecks paid, um, it's a different monster. And it's kind of crazy going from 25 years in the military and 25 years in law enforcement, always following orders, to now I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. I'm in charge. And then now I have a different set of problems that I'm always trying to overcome, and it's part of the journey.
Yeah. When did you join GoBundance?
I joined. It's coming up on 4 years. I did leave last year for about 5 or 6 months when I was going through my health issues. I just couldn't find the time to get away, and the pods were. I mean, I'm still on my original pod as well as a new one, but um, I couldn't make time for it because I had so much of other. And I mean, you can't see them now, but like I had like scabs all over my arms and legs, and my doctor was just like, "You're doing too much, man." And I was like, "Thank you, sir. Like I got it." So from that point, I'm trying to, oxygen mask for myself first, as I'm trying to say no to the things that don't help me reach my ultimate goals and visions.
It's a good philosophy for anybody listening. A, make sure you take care of yourself first, and B, make sure everything you're doing is in line with your vision, which you need to have a vision and a plan in order to make sure you're sticking to it. So take some time to do that. The reason I ask about GoBundance is because I believe so strongly in the concept and the idea of masterminding and being around the right people for the right thing. GoBundance is an amazing group that I've been aware of for years. I've known people in and out. I finally joined earlier this year, and then I have my own
Congratulations.
mastermind for people that are trying to buy small businesses as well. And there's resources out there for you, whatever your goals are. Like, go find those groups and get in them, because they really do help. And they give you the right advice. If Mike would have listened to his podmate and taken some time to himself, he probably wouldn't have had the stress related
That's right,
autoimmune
Sam.
disorder.
Listen to
Um,
the experts.
yeah, it's one thing to get in the right rooms, and then it's another thing to actually take that advice to heart and apply it to your life. So you've got the 4 locations now. The partnership with the Texas Rangers as the official Thai and Asian food, which is an incredible opportunity. Like, it's such a cool thing to be a part of, and probably great for your brand and for your ultimate goals as well. Any How did that come about, and what was I'm sure there was a financial commitment with that as well. Like, how did you grapple with that, and how did you decide that that was the right move for you?
So we say it all the time, me and my business partner. So she's also in the military. She's a mass sergeant in my old unit. I nominated her for 40 under 40 for the city of Mansfield, and she won. She's got a doctorate degree in business. So she is helping me offload a majority of the things that I was doing as a business partner, and taking some of that time and stress off my plate. So within the first week, she came on board and she's like, "Hey, I know the vice president of Texas Rangers. You want to see if we can't do something with them?" And I'm a your typical visionary, like say yes to everything. And I was like, "Heck yeah, let's go." And then we met with him. He had our food. He loves the fact that I was, military and police in Arlington. He's like, "You're exactly the partner we want." He's like, "It's going to be this much." And this much is over $500,000 for a 3-year deal. And I said, "Cool, let's do it." And he goes, "How are you going to pay for that?" I said, "I have no idea." And just typical entrepreneurial spirit, like we'll figure it out kind of deal. So I reached out to some associates, business partners, on other projects. And Tim, we say this, me and my business partner say this all the time, is um, there's capital. You need money to buy some stuff, but there's also relationship capital. And that is way more valuable than actual dollar capital. So when you have these relationships, because she knew the vice president of Texas Rangers, and some of my investors are state representatives for Texas, county commissioner, the mayor of my town is an investor with us. So these relationships matter, and I can call on anybody anytime, and mayors or city council members, and that's an amazing thing to have. And I even have a house resolution for the state of Texas named for me for my military retirement. So I'm in the history books for Texas from all time. And like, it's pretty cool. And I'm humbled and honored of that. So when you talk about these partnerships, like I want to get in the room with everybody and I want to shake their hand and I want to talk about what our goals and vision are. And every time I'm planting a seed, and you never know when that seed turns into a giant tree that provides fruit for generations. So I try to get in the room with the people. I add value without expecting anything back. Um, and clearly, what separates us from other restaurants is we do have a partnership like that. So now, if we're selling franchises, it's like, oh, I can go buy a McDonald's or Chick fil A, or I can hit the startup that's got a handful of locations. I know the CEO and the owner, and he's aligns with my values. And, there's some people that are pretty important backing them. So that was a long-winded way to say one of the oil guys that we had some real estate and oil investments together. He's an investor in my restaurant, and um, you know, there's a few bucks in the oil industry, and he said, "Yeah, that's partner." And he provided that, and I provided some equity, long-term equity, because I do believe that once we get to a number of stores that are pretty close to where we're at now, that a bigger buyer's going to come in and scoop us up.
So I think I kind of glossed over something there too, and then you're talking about investors. You bought the first restaurant for $275,000 with all your own capital and seller finance note. How did you end up with a partner and investors, and why?
So why? It's because I didn't have enough money. Um, Working, as a cop, like I think my pension after 17 years of service was $1,599. When you say past 20 and 25, then the numbers change. But because I was only a short period, my numbers were not that great. So I didn't have the money. So that's why um, the how is fostering these relationships and adding value. So one of the guys wanted to buy one of my rental properties for his son, and I wanted to offload a rental property so I could put it toward the restaurant and our growth. Um, that's what I did, and you know, we start talking about diversification of assets. Like single families are great, and they long term, not a whole lot of work, but if somebody can hand you a check for $400,000 and say, "Hey, let's go build this business that was paying you instead of, you know, $1,200 a month profit, I'm now making $8 to $10,000 a month." And I was like, what if I just did that again? And then I could make, 16 to 20. And if I did a third one, and then, at some point when you're making 30, 40, $50,000 a month, you don't have many money problems after that.
Yeah, yeah. And so you wanted the cap or you needed the capital for your expansion because it's expensive to build out new restaurants and partner with the Texas Rangers. So, and part of your vision is to get into or get acquired by a larger group, which means you need to have some, more than one restaurant most likely. And that's so there's whenever you're buying a business or doing in business in general, like you have multiple paths that you can take. From Mike could have retired from the police or kept his job for a little bit longer, sat steady with one restaurant and collected a paycheck, collected some dividends forever. But he saw a path to really grow this, get it out, and make a bigger impact in the community. So he needed additional capital, which makes sense. Uh, Anything else that you feel like my listeners should know about buying a restaurant, growing a restaurant, planning an exit?
So I will tell you, I didn't quite fully answer your last question. Is that once I was able to get in the room with GoBundance and listen to these people talk about raising capital, I felt comfortable enough to go around and say, hey, you guys know my restaurant's been here for 15 years. We've increased sales. Now I'm raising money for the other one. So I started selling equity into raising capital. So um, I would sell my shares at 5,000 a piece because most people that I know, and my book is called Blue Collar Wealth, and it's the basics of investing. And I wanted my friends and family and cops and military world and bartenders and Chili's people to be able to buy something and say, I own a piece of that because most people aren't accredited. And if you don't know what accredited is, it's a net worth of over $1 million or 2 years of $200,000 of income, which most people are not. So now that I can offer them and say, hey, most people don't have 100 grand laying around, but they got 5 or 10. So then they wanted to be a part of this. So that's how I raised capital for my original store and how I'm doing it as well for the Arlington location. Um, One thing that I also wanted to mention was we are on the M&A market right now with a major company called Generational Group. They're the number one M&A firm, and they're based out of North Dallas. And they came in and did an internal valuation. So after 3 years, I bought it for 275. I put 80 cash into it, and we got a valuation at 1.5 to 2 million. So essentially an 8x over 3 years. And that's without our franchising sales, and that's without our Arlington store, which is going to be our flagship location. So I do think that there is a potential pretty solid exit to go from 275 to, I would say, with three operating franchisees, even if we didn't try to do any more, we didn't even try to sell them. It's all word of mouth of people that know me. Um, I think that we're looking at a $5 to $10 million exit in the next 24 months.
Wow, that's incredible growth for an industry that most people, including myself, shy away from or wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. So that's very impressive, Mike.
Damn, I'll be educating people not to get into this field as soon as I'm out of it. I promise you.
Yeah, that's although I've said this before too. I do feel like everybody talks negatively about their own industry when they're talking to other people, like to some extent. I know doctors that say, no, never be a doctor while they're pulling in high 6 figures a year, or lawyers that, so there's a right fit for everybody. You just got to know your own skills and know what your risk tolerance is and what your interests are. I also, I jokingly say I need to stay away from food because I have no self-control around food. If it was, I'd be 500 pounds if I had unrestricted access to Thai curries. So that's
hard, Tim. I eat it 4 or 5 times a week.
Yep. Yeah. Ordering it once in a while, I can live with, but every day would be
Sure.
tough. Well, Mike, I really appreciate your time and your willingness to share your story and motivate people. Is there anything my audience can do for you besides go eat at your restaurants if they're in the DFW area?
They could buy my restaurants.
Okay.
Come reach out and we'll give you the full service for selling franchises. And no, just keep on spreading positivity and faith out into the world. Um, I'm an executive pastor in a congregation over here as well. And, even though I do have a background in law enforcement and military, like, doesn't always align the way you want, but I'm a big believer in serving and elevating others. And on the back of my franchising booklet, it says the Zig Ziglar quote: "You can have everything you want in life if you just help everyone else get what they want in life." And the more and more I pour into my faith and help others without any expectation, the more and more great doors open up. And I would just, God's blessed me for years and years and years. I shouldn't be on this podcast, and I shouldn't be in GoBundance or a multimillionaire, but here I am, and I'm going to keep on trying to serve others as much as I can.
Thank you for that, Mike. It's awesome. We really appreciate it. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everything you do for your community. And I'll see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Business Buying for Financial Independence. If you're serious about owning your time and building long-term wealth, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.